Welcome, everyone, to another discussion as part of our webinar series, Immigration 301, where we are digging into very complex immigration topics and trying to bring clarity and solutions for challenges that companies and lawyers are facing today as we are in unprecedented times. My name is Danielle Goldman, and I'm co-founder and CEO of the Build Fellowship and Open Avenues Foundation. We partner with law firms and companies across the country to provide creative immigration solutions for top global talent. And some of those solutions we'll chat about today. But we are thrilled to welcome back Jonathan Grode, who is the U.S. Practice Director at Green and Spiegel. And he is front and center on so many immigration issues that U.S. companies face. So welcome, Jonathan. It would be awesome if you could start with an introduction for the group.
Well, I think you did a pretty good introduction yourself there, Danielle. But no, I'm happy to be here. Always really pleased to work with the Build Fellowship, and frankly, just expand people's general knowledge of what's going on, separate a little myth from fiction. I find that with the Trump administration, this is gonna be my teaser. Everything sounds like doom and gloom, and it sounds like really challenging, but we often talk about in life about unintended consequences. And with the Trump administration, sometimes there's unintended benefits. And my hope is that through this panel and presentation, we can start to glob on to some of that stuff and really understand the dynamics here. There's a lot of new. And frankly, for a program that has been very static for a very long time, new, even though it's done from a perspective of being immigration hawks, does create opportunity for those who are willing and wanting to be what we say like early adapters. And I think like in a lot of ways, the Build Fellowship and its mission becomes almost a little bit more applicable in some contexts. So those are my teasers for today, and look forward to having to ride in with you. Myself, I'm the managing partner of Green and Spiegel. Been doing this gig for a while. In addition to running the law firm, we have 9 offices throughout the United States and Europe and Canada. I'm also an adjunct professor of law at Temple University. And just really of the mindset these days that like we're all in this together. So all information is shareable. All information is something that we can all benefit from, and new ideas will be fostered. And I guess that's my opening salvo for you.
Oh my gosh, this is the most positive sentiment towards immigration I've heard in a long time. But
well, I could be negative about a lot of things. I could be negative about a lot of things.
It's amazing because you run a practice, and this is a very hard time to be an immigration lawyer, and it's important to have this perspective of, immigration is going to happen in this country, and we are going to ensure that there are pathways that are open, and we'll figure it out together. And I love the positive unentiended consequences concept. So we'll ride that today.
Unintended benefits.
Unintended benefits.
There you go.
Cool. So let's dive in. Last year at this time, there was also there were changes to the H-1B lottery. And so now we're kind of compounding new changes. Can you start by just giving us some context as to where we are today with the H-1B lottery and what last year's changes meant for companies, how those are sort of setting the baseline and some of the data changes we've already seen from how many registrants head into the H-1B lottery, and set some context as to what we're looking at before we even talk about the wage-based changes.
Yeah, I mean, look, last year was minor in comparison. I mean, last year did a good job of really honing in on who can apply and how you can apply and how things are counted. But obviously with the Trump administration being sort of new to the game the second time around, not a lot could really be impacted in terms of radical change. This year it's different. And the reason why it's different is we have 2 things going on that have like really shook the way we look at the H-1B lottery. And I do want to make note, as of today, we don't actually have formal instructions on how the lottery is going to play out in terms of dates and form and substance. So we're still kind of waiting for the details. But the big changes are this sort of tiered based approach to the lottery. And they're doing this based off of wage levels, and they're assigning lottery tickets to each level. And this is kind of coming from the concept and this idea that H-1B workers on the entry level are sort of taking away opportunities from US workers. So we want to favor people in more experienced positions that dictate higher wages. And the way it bears out is kind of fascinating. So for each wage level that you go up, you get an extra lottery ticket. So for any of you that have been on the OES and have checked out the wage levels, you'll see for each occupational classification, there's 4 different wage levels. Wage level 1, you get 1 lottery ticket. Wage level 2, you get 2 tickets. Level 3, 3 tickets. Level 4, 4 tickets. Now, if you are somebody that has a master's degree or higher from a U.S. institution and you're in that 20,000 set aside, and you're a wage level 4 occupation, theoretically you get 8 lottery tickets this year. I mean, we'll have to see how the numbers bear out and how they actually are going to apply it. Like, again, we need some more details. But for those that are holding more advanced positions, maybe you've had OPT for a couple of years, maybe you've had to dip back in and do the H-1B lottery again. Maybe you've been working on CPT, maybe you're a little bit further along and more advanced, but your underlying basis is a U.S. master's degree. This could be very robust. It could be very robust.
Mhm.
So, I think that is something that we have to be mindful of. Now, one thing that I would caution employers against is don't necessarily look at the salary you are paying to determine your wage level. I think there's like this
Mm,
instinctual analysis to say, oi, I'm paying this person 100K. Wage level 3 is 95,000. Because I'm paying above wage level 3, this is wage level 3.
mm,
I think that is potentially a little bit of a recipe of disaster. And if you look at some of the language around the Federal Register entry for the new tiered system, it's not what you pay the person. It's what the employer requires that dictates the wage. It's your own requirements. Here's the analogy I give in school, okay, when I'm teaching the class. Let's say you're a foreign national, Danielle, and you're going for an H-1B. You happen to be a vampire. You've lived for 200 years,
mm.
and you have 5 PhDs and 100 years of experience. You are the most qualified person ever for this job.
Yep.
You might be paid hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Right.
But if the role you are fulfilling is entry level that does not require experience or anything beyond a baccalaureate
Okay.
level degree, wage level 1,
Okay.
1 lottery ticket.
Okay.
And that's the real important part here is like you have to justify your wage level suggestion. So I think there might be a little bit of an impetus upon employers to push the wage level without thinking about the justification needed for that wage level selection in the first place. And that's where we need to be
Mm.
mindful because,
That's so interesting. Can
yeah.
you explain what you mean by, justifying a wage level? How do you work with companies to justify a wage level? Do you look at who is paid the most within that position and that is the maximum that they could put on an H-1B petition? How are you figuring out that justification?
So I use like the old school perm wage analysis from when the perm regulations came out in like 2003.
Hmm.
And they have like this wackadoo formula, which is pretty much like a combination of the SVP level. And unfortunately, we don't have visual aids today, so I can't really teach the wage level analysis. But ostensibly, you are looking at a situation where when you look at the OES and you have your occupational classification, it suggests based on job zone how many years of experience and education associated with a position. And if you
Okay.
go above that, so let's say the position, according to OES, requires a bachelor's degree and you require a master's degree, it ticks up a level.
Okay.
If you require 2 years of experience as opposed to no years of experience, it ticks up a level.
Hmm.
And if you require travel, it goes up a level. If you require supervisory skills, it goes up a level.
Mm.
And like I always import the analysis from that to justify the wage level selection. Where do I get this data? I ask the employer for the advertisement that they use to solicit the individual in the first place.
Okay.
If they didn't use an advertisement to solicit for the person, then I say, what do your internal documents say for this particular role?
Yep.
And if they don't have that because it's a small employer or it's a new position, then we try to memorialize that prior to
Mm.
actually submitting the H-1B so we have contemporaneous evidence to support the justified wage if questioned down the road.
So this is really interesting because many companies that I have talked to are under the assumption that they can go and just decide that they want to invest in an individual financially, and therefore they can offer an astronomical wage or certainly above the level four wage, and therefore they're, you know, giving an 8x on that person's chance of winning the lottery this year. So you're saying that's not how this goes. You can't necessarily arbitrarily just increase someone's salary. You have to actually prove that there is a need to pay that salary for this kind of role. And so is like, can I just get a acknowledgement? Like, is that how, you've probably heard companies come to you and assume that they can just pay the highest wage and that's that. Are you working with them to figure out
I
how to do that?
Yes, we are working with them to figure it out and document it because I'm being cautiously
Right,
optimistic. Look, I don't know how it's going to bear out.
right,
But when the regulations say you have to be able to prove your wage level selection, I don't think going back to USCIS on an RFE and saying, well, they just make a lot of money. That's why we're doing it this way is going to fly.
right. Hmm.
I just don't believe it. Like, look, again, this is new.
Yep,
We only know what we know, which is absolutely nothing. So I'm going to read the regulations and say, all right, well, I'm not going into this blind. I want to have some backup here just in case it comes up.
right. Totally. And are you hearing of different attorneys thinking of putting in the higher level four wage into the lottery registration, even though that's not the wage that they're actually going to pay the individual later on? Do you believe there has to be evidence later of a wage being paid that was
Well, the wage doesn't need to be paid until October 1st when
right,
the H-1B kicks in. So, look,
right,
I see in the Q&A there's some conjecture over this and how you use the wage level and like I do get that. But again, when you are dealing, and this is just my advice and guidance, like every attorney and every company is gonna do what they feel comfortable with. Fundamentally, I feel like if they're going to ask for proof, I want to be able to prove it.
right.
I would rather be conservative with my wage level selection. And I will tell you why it's okay to be conservative this year and not to be too aggressive on the lottery tickets when we start talking about the $100,000 fee and what that's going to do to the process. So
Mm,
there's a part two to my rationalization here.
okay.
But like, look, I agree with a lot of the commentary here. Like, there's a really good one from an anonymous commenter which says, I thought USCIS OES wage levels and the DOH wage levels used on the LCA are different for weighted lottery. Look, listen, I agree with this, this commentary, but that's not going to stop an aggressive officer from saying prove it. And I want to be able
Right.
to have backup evidence and
Yeah.
information.
I,
Um,
I I think conservative, it makes sense that under this administration, with the kinds of individuals who are going to work and are being trained in this environment, that more evidence and more of a conservative approach makes sense right now. Certainly something I think a lot of companies are going to want to think about. So I'm glad you're
Well, we
bringing it
can
up.
flip, and people are like, well, why are you going to be more conservative on your approach? And okay, there's a couple reasons. Like, one, there's flexibility within the occupational classifications that you choose. Now, whilst I'm very conservative on wage levels, I can advocate for different occupations based on the job description.
Hmm.
Like the classic example is a marketing manager versus market research analyst. Like those job descriptions, if you look at OES, are like practically the same.
Right.
You can be a level one marketing manager or a level four market research analyst. Like if I can dip in on MRA and then pop it at wage level four and justify it, then I'm going to do it.
Yeah. We have
So,
quite a few employers on the call, and Amy asked a good question. Just so people are really trying to understand how to go about doing the research you're suggesting, right? How to go and look at the OES and read it and understand what their employees should be paid based on that analysis. So can you take us through just what that actually looks like from like what are you recommending employers do exactly going to OES?
so when you, yeah, it's, I mean, again, this is like going back to that. I use the only thing the DOL has actually put out on wage level determination.
Yeah.
Look, if it didn't take 9 months to get a prevailing wage response back from the government,
Right.
like you might be submitting a prevailing wage request for them to tell you what the wage level is, and that would be the
Totally.
ideal evidence.
Totally.
I don't know. I don't. You guys probably don't remember this, but when this whole wage level and wage request came out, prevailing wage requests, you used to fax them into your state workforce agency, and they would get back to you in a day.
It's so much faster. Faxing was
I was,
faster than the current systems with chat bots and,
dude,
systems
I'm
for
telling you,
reality.
it was incredible. And I've always said to myself, why can't they just have you fill out a form and you put in the data and they spit out what the wage is?
Unbelievable.
Like, unfortunately, to like really discern and teach wage level, it requires, I mean, I spent a whole class in my business
Yeah.
immigration class talking about wage levels
Right.
and how to figure it out.
Yeah.
The bottom line is it's not about percentages per se. It's about what you require. Like the 50%, and I think this has gotten skewed over the years with the way they use the data, but wage level four is meant to be like the median. It's not meant to be the max,
Yeah.
you know? So I would err on the side of caution.
Yeah.
But I do want to answer one of the questions here was saying, so what you're saying is that if my employer is paying me at or above wage level three for my title according to the database, and I have an amended offer letter or paycheck showing that I'm already being paid the wage, I still won't be given three tickets. In that case, you might be given three lottery tickets if your amended offer letter has requirements for that position that would put you in the wage level three bucket. And that's kind of the point is like document it. Have a justification, any justification. Because if they start issuing like gotcha RFEs, I don't want you to be flat footed. I mean, that's really just what it is.
And if
That's
individuals transfer cities later and their wage no longer is in that prevailing wage,
doesn't matter.
it
I
doesn't
mean,
matter.
once they're selected, they're selected.
Right. So do you think there's a strategy where companies start to move talent into places where they are able to pay a level four wage and then essentially transfer them later?
They could, but then they're still going to have to like justify why the person is taking a demotion.
Yeah. Right.
So I don't know if I would be
Yeah.
advising that.
Right. My brain thinks, a little bit between the lines, and I don't always listen to me. Let's keep moving. I think there's a lot here that
I mean, we
I
kind of
want.
hit all the questions. And look, I will say
Yeah.
this. For those of you that are concerned, the Build Fellowship has a great referral network. And whether it's
Yeah.
me or another firm that they partner with, if you don't have
Totally.
counsel, we can get you to counsel.
Yeah.
I also want to just reiterate that, look, this is a moving landscape. It really is. And until we have like further evidence on how the lottery is going to play out, until we have further information on trends on adjudication,
Right.
these are just my almost like hypothesis on how it's going
Right.
to happen based on the information that's available to us. So I
Jonathan.
really want to stress
Yeah.
that like it's new and it's exciting because it's new.
Right.
And I mean exciting in an academic sense, not in, oh my God, I have to deal with this sense.
Yeah.
But it's going to change. The interpretations are going to change. Things will
Right.
get adjusted.
Right.
So
And do you think that this is actually legal? Like, is this going to happen? Was the rulemaking process done correctly? Is it going to be implemented this year? Are there any actions that are being taken to stop this right now, or is your prediction
Uh,
this moves forward?
I'm pretty sure this is going to move forward at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing that, and I don't want to get into overarching politics because there's outside of the H-1B realm, it's really tough. But I think this administration has sufficiently distracted the population from being able to focus in on singular concepts to such a degree it is hard to really make hay in any one arena.
Hmm.
And even when there is litigation and legislation, surprisingly around the H-1B, it's come out in favor of the president. And I think
Yeah.
there's nowhere more palatable in this regard than what we saw with the $100,000 rule and the Chamber of Commerce challenge.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us thought that that challenge was going to be successful.
Right.
And a judge appointed by Obama found in favor of the administration on summary judgment.
Yeah.
It's a pretty strong indication of where the administration
Right.
feels this is, really going on what their power is within this system. Now, theoretically, do I think that the government setting up a tiered system is something they can do through a regulation as opposed to a statute? Probably.
So we'll expect this to move forward. I mean, there's
I
nothing really stopping this at this point from being implemented in March.
I'm pretty sure it's going to go to fruition. I'm planning on it. Is you ever watch a football game? I know the Super Bowl is coming up. You ever watch a basketball game and there's like a coach's challenge, and
Yep.
you're like, no way, that was interference. I guarantee it. And then it comes out the other way. Like that's the way
Yep.
that it feels like with the courts. Like whatever I think is going to happen, the opposite tends to happen.
Yep. That's
But look,
unbelievable.
we got to start thinking about these things this way.
That's right.
We
That's right.
have to start thinking about different permutations. And just like when we're advising clients, we don't just have an A plan anymore. You have to have a B.
Yes.
You have to have a B. And that's like, to be honest with you, part of the beauty of where the Build Fellowship has always sat.
Hmm.
It's been like you don't get selected in the lottery, but you need this person. There is an avenue here that's available to you.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Planning and figuring out these creative solutions is something we have to talk about at the end because there's going to be winners and losers. And that's where I want to go right now is there are going to be unintended benefits for many companies. And this is a good thing. The wage-based system in theory has a lot of logical aspects to it that do make sense for the US. And so there will be companies that benefit. And there will be companies who this will be a challenge for. Can you, using your on your hypotheses train right now, can you give us a sense of who you think are going to be the winners and the losers? Like who is this going to benefit and who is this going to make this world more challenging for right now with sponsorship?
the wage level system, you mean, just in
Yes, this
general, or
new
just
this
the
new wage level, this new wage-based lottery system.
I mean, it's definitely going to advantage people with advanced degrees who are holding positions that require it. I think it further helps like the master's degree people for sure.
Yeah.
Because, by very nature, if you're in a base level zone four occupation, you have master's degrees, that's pumping you up a level anyway.
Hmm.
So I do think that that's advantageous. I don't know what it's going to do to like skew the pool of talent. I don't know if it's going to effectuate like smaller employers and they'll be disadvantaged over larger employers because they don't have the same wherewithal to pay salary. Like, a lot of times somebody will join a smaller company because they see an opportunity for growth and getting in on the ground floor. It's a
Right.
beautiful thing when you can be taking a lower wage for a promise of higher return later. And
Right.
to those individuals, a lot of these H-1B holders are far more valuable than to a large company. So I could see some issues there.
Hmm.
But look, I think on balance, let's talk about the $100,000 fee because I think that that is that's more significant in a lot of ways than the wage level.
Right.
All
Right.
right. So for years and years and years and years, I've always kind of said, like, listen, if you go to school in the United States and you do a bachelor's degree or a master's degree and you're from a foreign country, like, why are you ostensibly on the same playing field when it comes to the H-1B
Totally.
lottery as somebody who's never stepped foot in the country?
Hmm.
Although it didn't feel this way when the $100,000 fee thing came out, this fee achieves that objective. Now, would I have preferred the administration to go to Congress where they have both, the House and the Senate and actually pass a law that like reallocated the numbers further to those that were needed? Yes, I would have much preferred that. I think it would have been a heck of a lot simpler. Do I think the mechanisms around collecting this fee are erroneous? Do I think talk about unintended benefits, there's unintended consequences, that the preamble to this entire proclamation was based on the fact that tech companies are making layoffs but still filing H-1B petitions, and the people that are harmed are actually hospitals and universities looking for doctors and nurses. Yes, I think that is all absurd.
Yeah.
But the unintended benefit is that those who are subject to the fee are those that are outside the United States. And if you look at the top 10 companies that apply for H-1B visas every year, sure, you got your big tech companies from the United States, but you also have a plethora of outsourcing enterprises that are filing for people not based in the country. And we know that those companies are not going to be seeking H-1B visas this year because now the math doesn't work.
Right.
It doesn't work anymore.
Right.
And if it was $10,000, they would still do it. If it was $20,000, they still do it. But once you get up into six figures, that is a lot of dosh.
That's right.
And if you're used to filing hundreds of H-1B lottery tickets so that you can fill holes in the labor market, etc., you no longer have that impetus. Now, I don't have exact numbers on this, but I would say about half of the lottery tickets are filed by companies that are doing it for people outside the United States in a historical context. They're going to go away.
Right.
And if we look at what's happening within Silicon Valley and the tech sector, I think there's going to be far less entry-level positions filed for because a lot of them are going for layoffs in different postures. Why is that significant? Because I think the pool of applicants this year is going to be substantially lower than in years past.
Yes. Yes.
Substantially lower.
That's right.
I think we could see half as many filings as I still think there's going to be a lottery. Like a lot of people don't remember, but the lottery wasn't always a thing.
No. Yeah.
Like it wasn't really until 2012, 2011 that it actually became a thing.
Yep.
Before that, the numbers would run out May, June, September, January. I mean, we had time to get it done.
Right.
And it was always a question about when is the cap going to be hit?
Mm-hmm.
This lottery stuff was new.
Right.
So look, I am no proponent of this administration.
Right.
But when they changed the registration from company FEIN a few years ago, which allowed for like the avoidance of multiple petitioners filing and making it based on individual as opposed to company sponsorship, that cut down a lot of the numbers. That was a good move. And this one, whilst I think is problematic and certainly not perfect, and will probably be amended or further detailed through other policy memoranda, for right now, it's creating a window in time where I think we're going to see our best lottery percentages, irrespective of wage level that we have seen in many, 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 many years.
Absolutely.
I'm thinking like, don't quote me on this. Well, you can later, but we could see like 65, 70% approval rating across the board.
Yep, that's what we're hearing and predicting as well. We've heard, for level 1 wage, for level 4 wage, it could be 100% selection.
Could be.
It's very.
I mean, they're lottery tickets, so I guess there is theoretically somebody who has bad luck who won't get picked.
Right.
But,
right.
I think I look at it across the board, and I think it's going to be very robust.
Yeah, absolutely. And the $100,000 fee, there are definitely unintended benefits because of the smaller pool in the US. The H-1B candidates are going to be stronger and companies will be able to keep their top talent. And there are so many benefits to that. And we see, because, I live and breathe in this H-1B world all day long, we have companies every year who have contractors abroad that they love and want to bring here. We have companies who are trying to fill nursing positions. We have companies who have medical technologists. They train abroad to fill talent gaps here, and they are really struggling right now. And so this is where you and I have talked in the past about the J1 program and why we have just partnered with AIFS, and we have a new J1 offering for our company partners
Cool.
and others, because we need a new way to help our company partners and also the ecosystem to
I mean, it's
bring
like a kind of
those
an under the radar
users.
sort of thing, but like the J1 is a very versatile visa, but there's many different forms of the J that you can use. The big thing is that on the eve of leaving the White House, the Biden administration ostensibly opened up the J1 visa by reducing the number of countries that are subject to the 2-year home residency requirement. So, look, there are other places. And look, even the traditional open avenues method could be viable too if they're in country.
Right.
So there are a lot of optionalities there. The one thing I will say, and I want to be very clear about this, be careful with that fee. Be
Mhm.
careful with that $100,000 fee when you're filing your H-1Bs because it's only for changes of status. They have to be physically present in the United States. My worry is that if you depart during the gap before the H-1B kicks in and it changes it from change of status to consular notification, that you could be hit with a $100,000 bill. So travel this summer is going to be very tricky.
Right. You're saying before an H-1B is approved with change of status
Not
and
before the start date, before it
before
kicks
the
in.
start date. That's interesting. So we have filed, I mean, since the proclamation, we've filed more than 30 petitions for fellows and companies across the US with 100% success rate. And it's been fairly seamless for these individuals to get, to do a change of status from OPT, CPT, J1, or L1B, whatever they are in now, to a cap exempt H1B in our program. And for those who don't know about the cap exempt H-1B, definitely follow up via email. We'll send more information. But we certainly have seen this be successful. But I definitely hear you, and those on the call who are in our program or our companies in our program definitely note that it is, even if you have this approval, traveling is going to be, before the start date of your employment with us, and even potentially, the concurrent employer is important to take into consideration. So we'll definitely be talking more about that.
Yeah,
The Yeah,
but the travel thing that's another gotcha.
right,
Yeah, so
right. And H-1B, I mean, how's your firm been managing with H-1B consular processing in general? I mean, companies right now are considering, should we even go down the H-1B route if we know we can get an H-1B because this lottery is going to be successful this year, we're going to have success in this lottery this year. Should we be considering other pathways anyway, given how challenging things have been at the US consulates? Or is
yeah,
this really across the board?
I mean, I'm kind of taking more of an approach of like anything but the H-1B first and then H-1B second, sort of flipping the script a little bit.
Yep,
That said, because I think the numbers are going to bear out and because I think a lot of people would prefer H-1B just because of its dual intent nature and other aspects to it, I am encouraging employers to give it a go this year.
yep,
I really am. Sorry.
yep. No, you're good. Yeah, it's a very, every attorney will have a full analysis done, of course, on, what options exist. And companies are going to be doing risk analyses this year on likelihood of getting selected, on, eligibility for O1 for these individuals, and whether or not they, are willing to even hire foreign talent in general. Are you seeing companies that have worked with Green and Spiegel for years come to you and say that they are changing their policy and not sponsoring foreign talent? Yeah, it's
Look,
that's the reality of what we're dealing with in the
yeah,
ecosystem
no, but I
right
mean,
now.
look, but again, this is where I find the Trump administration fascinating. And this is why I actually think it creates opportunity for those that are willing to dip in because there's going to be less players in the game.
Right.
Like this is why I'm saying go for it. Like 4 months ago, 5 months ago, I was like, avoid the H-1B. Now I'm like, no, we got to dip in because the opportunity is there.
Right. That's absolutely
Look,
true.
the Trump administration does something really well this time, and that is create chaos to change behavior.
Hmm.
We've seen it over and over and over again. What's interesting is there's like pushback now against some of the stuff with ICE that is actually changing their behavior, and that in and of itself could be a whole nother discussion. But
Yeah.
within this context, like think about it. Last spring, we had this existential crisis against the universities, and students and student visas became the pawn in this entire argument between the administration and higher education. What did the Trump administration do? They took away Harvard's ability to issue student visas, I-20s. They took it away.
Right.
The next day, practically, Harvard files for an injunction.
Yeah.
The injunction is granted. Anybody who wanted to go to Harvard got to go to Harvard. But that's not what made the headlines.
Right.
Harvard taking away student status
Right.
made the headlines. And
Yep.
foreign enrollment in U.S. universities is down 20% as a result.
Yep.
They don't really care if the law sticks. They're using the courts to define how far they're going to go. And in the case of ICE, we're seeing public opinion sway how far they're willing to go.
Right.
Right?
Right. Yeah.
But that initial hit to change behavior by not
Yeah.
actually creating a law that sticks, it's a fascinating, fascinating effect. So when you come out and say $100,000 for H-1Bs, and it's on a Friday,
Right.
and everybody's scrambling to get the people
Chaos.
in, and there's the things, and there's the chaos, and the da 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 da. That's by design.
Hmm. Totally. Yeah. There's a
And
fear in the ecosystem.
it changes behavior, Daniel. It
Yeah.
changes behavior. And it gets companies to say, you know what? It just ain't worth it.
Right.
But that's what they want. They want you to say
Yep.
it's not worth it. That achieves their objective.
Right.
But
Right.
it creates correspondingly
Yes.
opportunity, those who are willing to engage in the program as it's
That's
created.
right.
And I think if you look at it carefully, there's a lot of opportunity.
Yeah. I love it. It's an amazing take because people we play, for anyone who didn't tune in last time, Jonathan and I spent an hour talking about perception versus reality.
Yeah.
And it was all about this concept of what is actually happening and for companies, what is the impact versus what is that perception. And it's just this. And I think between, build fellowship and everything that, we stand for, it is trying to work with companies to ensure that top talent that they need can stay here, and we're getting as creative as possible right now to make sure we meet the moment with a new J1 program and also an O1 agent program, which is going to be a good solution for companies who just don't want to take on sponsorship themselves right now in this ecosystem. They just don't want to do it, but they want the workers, and they want top talent from around the world. So, if
Well,
anything, it's sort of another interesting angle.
well, it's very fascinating because the type of workers and where we need workers is also changing rapidly because we have
Right.
this sort of AI revolution going on. Like,
Yes.
sure isn't boring right now, that's
No,
for
it's not
certain.
boring. It's not boring. It's a wild time, and we have a lot of questions that people have, and some of them are more granular than others. But I think we should take a few minutes to answer these
Sure.
before we wrap up, because folks have been patient as we have gone on
Yeah, I
about
tend to
our
waffle a
qualms.
little bit. I apologize.
All good. So, Sai asked a question. Oh no, we actually got to Sai's question, but I'm going to move on to someone who is asking about an anonymous attendee is asking about the master's cap. So if he's doing a master's and graduating in July, should he use the master's cap in this upcoming lottery, even though he hasn't graduated? If he doesn't graduate until July?
Yeah, so July's a tricky one. when you enter the lottery and you get selected, you have 90 days ostensibly from April 1st to file. If you obtain the terminal degree for the classification that you're seeking after the lottery, but before you submit, you can claim the higher category. So, for example, Danielle, you're doing a master's program in electrical engineering.
Mhm.
You're graduating in May. Okay, you can enter in under the master's cap. Even though the window for filing opens in April, you won't be able to submit until after you get your degree.
Right. Got it.
July, unfortunately, is no go,
Yep.
right? Because it's past the 90 days. So that
Got
wouldn't work.
it. Okay. Helpful. Someone asked if they're in a remote role with flexibility to relocate anywhere in the US, does it make sense to evaluate which countries and cities offer the best value or rather where they can get the highest prevailing wage and consider relocating? If
Um,
so, when would be the deadline to actually relocate?
so I don't really like that fact pattern very much because I
Yeah.
think you're starting to see CIS push back on this and saying, well, if your role is really remote and you can be anywhere, why do you need to be in the US?
Hmm.
Like I predict RFEs coming down along that. Like you have to justify need to be in the
Right.
United States.
Yeah.
So like
Yeah.
purely remote rules that are not tethered to an office and an era of return to
Yeah.
office to me are problematic.
Yeah.
Um,
It's interesting. I mean, we at Open Avenues and our nonprofit partners, we've been doing remote H-1B
yeah,
positions,
but that's a little different
right?
because they're
Yeah,
affecting a
they're affiliated
population
with
that
the
exists
university.
into it.
That's fair.
That's a
That's
little
fair. We haven't
different.
received any RFEs, but I can imagine in this case that an RFE would could happen.
Like I just had a case where it was actually not in this kind, it was for a TN and a pretty standard TN for an accountant.
Yep.
The guy wanted to live in Pennsylvania. The job was in Virginia.
Mm,
And the guy at the border was like, "Well, how often do you have to go to Virginia?" He's like, "It's a
right.
remote position." He's like, "Well, I'm not
Right.
granting it because he can do it from Canada."
Yep.
And like that mindset is going to creep in. Remember,
Yep.
U.S. immigration law does not apply if you're not physically present in the United States.
Right. Right. This is an interesting question about part-time employment. Should the wage be calculated by converting to a full-time wage? And I think it's interesting because uh, we have seen companies in the past try to employ strategies where they take the total salary that they can pay and do a part-time 30-hour per week at the higher fair prevailing wage. What do you think about this question, which is how does it really work with part-time employment and that strategy of decreasing hours, making it an hourly wage at a higher rate?
I don't mind decreasing the hours if you're actually decreasing the hours.
Right.
Like, here's the thing about work. I don't know how many hours a week you work. I work a crap ton.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to stop working until the project's done.
Right.
Like I think it's really hard to say, oh, 30 hours, gotta roll. Like
Totally.
it doesn't really happen. So I think it's theoretically very possible. I think it is inherently dangerous.
Yeah.
Like you gotta remember, guys, like DOL has new auditing powers. Like this project firewall, like they're coming. They're coming.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah, so I would not get cute.
Yeah.
If it's legitimately 30 hours, it's 30 hours. Now, as far as part-time work goes, it's fine. I use the hourly wages listed on the OES, and I usually put
Yeah.
a range on the filing of like, I don't put a set number of hours. I usually do a range. I don't like to go below 20, but I'll say like 20 to 30. You gotta be a little careful because anything over 32.5 in some federal context is um, deemed to be ostensibly full-time work. So you gotta be a little careful there.
Mhm.
But like I don't mind a range and I don't mind part-time gigs.
Okay. Um, Another more technical question, but for people who have worksite location changes, and this is, where we're figuring out the wage and what this is going to mean. If there are two MSAs for registration and they're not sure which one they're going to be working at two different locations, do they go by the lower
Higher.
wage, the higher wage? Okay, that's interesting. That's helpful.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, in
And
terms of what they have to pay, are you talking about for
right,
lottery selection?
the lottery selection.
I have to look that up. I think it would be the lower common denominator. But again, it's not about the wage, it's the wage level.
Right.
So,
And it could be the wage level could be consistent across both
well, it
cities.
has to be if
It
it's the
has
same,
to be
unless you're doing
consistent.
two different jobs.
Right, right,
Remember, it's not about what you get paid, not about your qualifications, what the
right,
employer requires.
right. That changes the answer. So that hopefully that makes sense to that individual. We have a question. Do you anticipate a delay in the registration period this year because USCIS has not announced
Uh,
reconfigured registration?
I'm like a little worried that we haven't heard yet.
Yeah,
I don't like it.
yeah,
Like we're doing our town halls with our clients and we're having
right.
this our second one tomorrow. We'll do a third one, but this is like where the conversation ultimately ends on this very point,
Right.
which is like,
When is it happening?
what are you doing? What is it? What is
Yeah.
it? I don't know. I don't know. Nobody knows.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I'm worried about it.
So it could get pushed. I mean, theoretically, there's
I
no,
mean, who knows
is
if
there
they even have the
anything that
technology?
says,
Who knows they even if they have managed to put the technology in to put wage levels into the process.
right?
We don't know.
What is it like? Why do we have this in March every year? Is it written somewhere that it has to be March, April
Oh, yeah. Well, it's very logical, actually.
because of the
I
October fiscal?
Yeah, so the numbers reset on October 1st. You're allowed to apply for an immigration benefit 6 months in advance. So it used to be like you had to have all your actual filings ready and you send them out the first week of April, except when they introduced the lottery, they backstopped it, and that's how we got to March.
So what's the risk here? If they keep pushing it out, that means that there could be like a 1 month period to file H-1Bs by June to get an
Oh,
October
I don't
start.
think they'll be able to do that because they have to accept them on April 1st.
Right. Okay. So
I
there's
think
a what is your fear based out of right now?
I just
You're
think
worried.
that they're gonna. I just think that the implementing regulations for the actual lottery will be different than what's in the Federal Register, what we've known from the FAQs, what we understand the wage levels to be, that it's going to require a further analysis and pivot, and people will be caught flat-footed.
Yep. Yep. Interesting. Um, okay, last question on part-time employment before we wrap. Um, this individual found this question quite interesting, and they said if the employer decides to lower their hours for a higher wage level, does that mean the employee would have more tickets in the lottery? If they did decide,
Repeat that one
basically,
again.
basically to summarize, they're asking if they did lower the amount of hours and said they want to hire this person at 30 hours a week, can they raise at a higher wage? Does that mean they can get more lottery slots because they're paying that level 3 higher
As long
wage?
as they can, in my opinion, justify the
Yeah,
requirements for the role that would put them into that higher wage level.
yeah,
Like
that's the theme here.
the job's not changing.
Right,
Remember, you're a vampire. You got all the skills in the world.
yeah.
It doesn't change the employer's requirements.
Right. So my takeaway is find a great lawyer that's going to find the evidence that these wage levels are going to be effective and really describe the work that's being done within this role.
I would say be creative within the bounds of the law, but don't
Yep.
be duplicative.
Yep.
Be willing to try, but don't get cute,
Yep.
you know?
Yep.
Because I really, really, really fundamentally believe a lot of wage level one people will be picked this year.
I think this is unbelievably helpful for the companies and lawyers and foreign nationals that were on the call today. And I am going to make sure that we send this presentation, this recording out to everyone who was on the call. Jonathan, thank you for your time. And my takeaway is don't get cute. that's, that's the line of the day, and we'll certainly be talking soon. And
Hey,
excited to
and
keep
like
brainstorming new solutions.
I always have a great time when I come on your show. I guess this is
Yeah,
the show.
I love it.
So, I'm always
Amazing.
happy to come back and
Yep.
seriously guys, like I said at the very beginning, we are all in this together.
Yeah.
So if you happen to be a practitioner and you're listening and you want to like brainstorm or plot something out, like feel free to get in touch. If you're a company and you want to talk about things, even
Yeah.
if we're not your counsel, like we're here to help. And I think that that's really the attitude we all should be taking. So,
I agree. I love it and am aligned.
cool.
We'll talk soon. Thank you everyone for
All right,
joining.
guys.
Take care.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody.